What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Help More, Sell More podcast. I am Jeff Burlingame, joined by my co-host, Joe Marcoux. Joe, what is up this fine morning, afternoon?
Beautiful day, beautiful day. The sun is shining. There's no rain, nothing but absolute clear skies. I hope everybody's feeling good. This is going to be a great show. What's up
I'm
with you, man?
excited. What's up with me? Well,
Yeah, what's going on?
it is gloomy, snowing, and terrible. It's Michigan in December. This is what happens to us this time of year. So I'm getting my blue light is coming from my key light here. That is like the only absorption of any UV or blue light that I get at this time of year. So we're
Smart
doing what
move,
we
though.
can.
That sounds to me like it's a good return on investment.
It actually is. You know what it does? It brings me joy throughout a
That's
really,
it.
tough time of year. A lot of people suffer seasonal depression. You can get
They
those
do.
like, those light devices can be really helpful. Speaking of
Absolutely.
ROI, that is the topic today. I'm glad you talked about that, Joe. So today, you guys, we are talking about finding an ROI, a return on investment for your clients. And it's not cash. That's right. We're talking intangibles and how this can help you make your sales process way more effective, eliminate a lot of objections, make sales easier for yourself, and potentially sell higher value or higher ticket items. So
And
I
so
think this is
even
going to
if
be a
you
fun
sell
one.
cryptocurrency and you're selling
Hmm.
things that are providing people a great return on investment, this show is still going to be for you. However,
Yeah.
for other people providing whether it's programs, services, products, listen in because the ROI, it ain't just about the 10x. There's more to it than that.
Yeah. And even with, cryptocurrency, financials, what you and I do, we help people sell more. If they
Mm-hmm.
sell more, that's cash, right? Well, that's not really all. We're talking the intangibles today because the intangibles are what make the biggest difference. I put myself into a commodity bucket essentially. If I say, hey, if you do Burley sales, you're going to sell more. Well, 100,000 other guys are saying the same thing on the internet. That's not what it's all about. I'm going to help you sell more, not just the cash side of things, but what are you actually getting? Are you maybe growing your business and moving yourself towards a position of financial freedom? Are you getting more freedom from your business? Are you building a better infrastructure within your business so you can take time off? Are you, with that financial freedom, able to provide your family with a better vacation that you weren't able to do before? It's really those things that I'm gunning for. That is what I'm going after. And I want that for you. That's what makes a
100%.
difference. So those are
The
the intangibles, right?
and those intangibles also come with the idea of the price as
Hmm.
opposed to the cost of not going through what I like to call a transformation. Right? You get this
Hmm.
transformative process of I've learned something so that I can now, whether it's I'm making more money or I'm improving my level of joy, my level of health, my relationships.
Yeah.
All of these things will happen if you look at the perspective of what is my return on investment, right? What's the cost of, and then the other question is, what's the cost of not? What's the cost of not? How does not doing this serve you? Powerful
You know,
question.
great minds literally think alike. You guys, the next episode that we're going to do is about positive and negative selling, and Joe just gave you an example of it. This
There it
happens.
is.
This happens every episode. It's almost like we're on the same brain wavelength right now. So, all right, you guys, before we dive into it, as always, if you like the content, if it helps you, if you're taking action, if you are, helping more people, selling more, effectively doing what we're trying to do on this podcast, consider subscribing to the podcast. Drop us a 5-star review. Leave a comment with that review. That helps us out a lot. And be sure to join our free Facebook group where we're starting to drop more content, do lives, have giveaways, and that is Help More, Sell More. Search for it on Facebook, answer a few simple questions. We'll let you in as long as you're a good fit for the program and you're going to contribute to others and that community. So
Join now.
let's get into the big question today. So, is there an ROI for your clients? The answer, I will tell you, spoiler alert, yes, there is. I don't care what you're selling. I don't care what industry you're in, product, services, it doesn't matter. Anything sold I would say arguably, unless it's complete trash. Let's last episode we talked about like some fake bike companies or whatever. You guys know the Amazon specials, like those random brands that you can buy stuff super cheap and then they break like a week later. Okay, so other than those things, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to go ahead and trust that what you're selling does have a positive ROI for your clients.
There's
And
no
I'll go
doubt.
out on a limb and I will guarantee that it does. So that's a big question. Does it? Yes, it does. But do you understand what that ROI is and how to find it? We've been dropping hints for the last 13 episodes, by the way, so you can always play back and listen to those. It helps
Can
you
you
find it.
describe what Jeff is talking about? Can you
Yeah.
describe what that return on investment is to your guests, to your customers? Can you effectively describe it where they sense it, they see it, they smell it, they feel it? If you can't describe it, listen in. We've got some gold that we're going to drop today.
I would say a great question to ask yourself either throughout this episode or after you listen to it would be, what do I sell? Actually, best way to approach this question right now. I want you to ask this question right now. Pause this episode. What do I sell? Answer the question right now. And then I want you to answer it again after this episode. And I want to see if those answers are different because I think they will be. I almost guarantee they will be. So let's dive in with story time, like we love to do every episode. This is our format. I'm enjoying it. Hopefully you guys are. Story time. Share a story about getting an ROI for your client. Just pick a client story, client testimonial. I know for a fact Joe has 907 video testimonials in folders categorized. So give me one example, Joe, where you got that intangible ROI, not just like I did Joe's program and I made money. Like, give me an intangible ROI.
Yeah, you know what? The intangible ROI, and I have so many of this, and it's so great for the SOS Dojo. It's the place where over the first 14 weeks, and then people after the first 14 weeks, they continue on into what we call the Kaizen, the Japanese saying for continual never-ending improvement. People buy the program and then they go through this transformative process. And the word that I want to give over and over again is confidence. Think of that. How do you measure confidence? Tough to really measure that. You can feel it, and yet can I actually touch it? I mean, I can feel it. Can I actually touch it, you guys? Can you take a measuring tool and go, now I was at a 3.8 and now I'm at a 4.6, right? Good luck. However, I have literally hundreds of testimonials from people who have said, I've done this program, I've continued on to the Kaizen because my level of confidence has gone through the roof. So when people first came in, they didn't know how to handle objection. They didn't know what to say, how to say it, where their body language was. And over time, and this is, I want to be very clear, that's the thing about training. It's practice. You have to put in the repetitions. And I don't care what it is that you sell. If you're speaking with people, you need to practice this approach. And whether you're doing discovery or you're doing clarity calling, or what we talked about previously on our previous episode was your intake process. We need to practice these and measure them. And then we need to practice our closing. And then we need to practice our follow-up. These are all practices as we get better. And they're all measurable, by the way. What's immeasurable is the level of confidence. It's that level of feeling. So that, honestly, Jeff, is probably the first thing that I would highly suggest to anybody who's curious about the SOS Dojo. You want to improve your confidence in sales? Come in for a free session. You want to be able to provide somebody confidence in terms of how they feel? Let's go into the fitness space. Somebody who is providing personal training, somebody who's a nutrition program. Are you giving people the measurable of, hey, I've taken so many pounds off of your body with this program? Or is it the intangible of how they feel? What do you think is more of a selling feature? I'm going to help you drop 15 pounds in 3 months? Or is it, you're going to feel great? Let me show you this testimonial. Would you like to get the results that Sally got? See how she's beaming? You see the joy, the glisten in her eye?
That confidence, that swagger, it goes a long way. So Yeah, I mean, much like Joe, I could give experiences from gym owner mentorship, from personal training with my clients, from developing salespeople in the gym space to, at Burley Sales. And I would say let's go ahead and say confidence is one of those things, and I would agree with that, and I could probably give examples of that. But I think another one that I like is clarity. Um, for example, with gym mentorship, when I get to work with gym owners, clarity is one of the biggest intangibles that is so freeing for them, where they've been struggling with this decision to make or this issue, or they're just not, they're not happy. It's not always about the money. I don't always hop on. I don't like to be super analytical when I'm working through those issues with them and saying, like, show me your revenue, show me your metrics. Oh, here's the problem. Your revenue's down. You're
Yeah.
not selling enough. Like, they know that. They don't want to hear that. Oftentimes, I'll just skip the metrics and talk to them as a human being. What's going on? How are you feeling?
Mm,
What do we need to do? And I can ask them questions and work through this scenario, and we can find clarity together that they're not happy.
yeah.
And then I'll
Yeah.
ask them, like, do you want to keep doing what you're doing? And they'll say no. And I'll say,
Yeah.
well, guess what? And sometimes it's also permission. We'll throw a P word in there. Sometimes it's permission. You don't have to keep doing what you're doing. We can change this. We can, like, we have that freedom. You have that freedom as a business owner to change things up. You don't have to be status quo. You don't have to, just live and die by the numbers if they make you unhappy. I'll give you an example. One of my favorite examples, because I've done this dozens of times with gym owners, is like, did you know? And this is my favorite question to ask them. Did you know that you don't have to handle member cancellations or client holds or customer service calls or emails in general or base inquiries or lead nurture process? Did you know that you don't have to handle communications at all within your business? Just because it's your business doesn't mean you have to be the one answering all those calls.
Exactly.
Did you know that you can just hire somebody to do that? Did you know you could maybe hire a VA to do that?
Yeah.
Or a person for a low hourly rate that would be happy to help you out? Like, there's so many options. And I feel like that has provided, once they've like offloaded that communications role, it has definitely provided a big just breath of fresh air, weight off their chest moment for a lot of gym owners that I've worked with. Because I know it
The
did for me. That was a big
the
one for me.
the ROI is right. What is the ROI that you provide for your client? And there's so many different versions of that. And what I hear in your example, Jeff, is not just are you happy? Because what is happiness to someone? It could
Yeah.
be that I have the freedom to be able to not be working 16-hour days. Right? I'm happy because I'm spending time with the people that I love.
Yeah.
It could be that there are some people, and let me be clear, there's some people out there, and I'm a grinder as well, right? I love to put in
Yep.
because I love my work. And so another word that I want everyone to really listen to, here it comes. The word is impact. What is the impact that I'm making on other people's lives? Simon
Mhm.
Sinek asks, what's your why? What's your why? Why are you driven to work? The other question that I'm going to ask you is, what's your who? Or frame it this way, who's your why? Not what's your why, who's your why? Why are
Mhm.
you doing it? Jeff, you've got a family. How many kids do you have?
I have two, and I'd take that even further, and I'm sure you're going there. It's like I do this for them, but I also do it so I can be with them.
Yeah.
You know, like, so I'm not like, I'll put it this way, because Joe brought up he's a grinder. I will grind for a purpose and for an extent of time. But I almost always set myself up into a position where I know there's an endpoint to that, where
Yep.
the grind ends because I've developed an infrastructure in which supports me, being able to do what I want to do, or having the freedom that I want to have. So, for
Yep.
example, like if I have to grind for 6 months so that my family is supported well enough, and I feel like I can provide my children, both of my daughters who are 5 and 8, and one's about to be 6 in the next couple of days here.
Nice.
Um, so, I want to provide them with like the gifts that they want and take them to places that they want. But what's more important than gifts and travel? It's you
Time.
time. It's
Time.
being there at that
That's
time.
it.
So I want to set us up not just like I don't care about having all that extra cash necessarily. I want enough to support them to have a happy family life and a good house, with a new roof that I just put on over our heads, so
Nice.
that
Woohoo!
we're not dealing with
No
issues.
squirrels.
Well, we're working on the squirrel still, but we'll get there. But I want to have that provided, and then I want to be able to give them the time,
And
right?
so
I
that
will
return on,
grind to get to
yeah. And that return on investment is so critically important, right? So whatever it
that.
is that you're offering, whether it is a product, somebody's buying a boat, right? Well,
Hmm.
why does somebody buy a boat? Well, you think of it. Is it because it could be because, hey, I need to get to point A to point B. Okay.
Yeah,
That could
yeah.
be the issue. What's point A? Going from the slip, getting to the cabin. And then what else do you do in a boat? You could go cruising, you could go fishing, you could have
Hmm.
adventures. And so what does that mean? It right, there's another example of the why, the impact, the memories that you have. Is it the boat where, yeah, this comes with a 300 horsepower Merc on it, it's a Verado, blah blah blah. No. What's the return on investment
Yeah.
is the memories that you will have with your friends, your family, your loved one that you do it like that. That's so what's the ROI? And I think of the word impact and
Hmm.
like, is it for you? Is it for your ego? It's generally when you think about it, when your heart's in the right place, right? When you're out to help more, you'll sell more. Who's your why? What's your
Yeah.
why? Who's your why? Answer those questions and it'll be interesting. What is it that you sell? Think of what Jeff asked earlier. Already, what are you selling?
It should
Has
be
it, has,
changing.
have you thought about what that is? Because we're not done yet.
Yep. So we talk about this every episode, right? Like you guys should ask more questions than you make statements. You should always be asking more than you make statements. As soon as you make statements, the most common statements you're going to make are going to be feature dumping statements like, check this out. You need this. You want this. You can't, telling isn't selling. You can't tell me what I need. You can't tell me what I want. I need to tell me what I want. So you have to ask me questions so that I give you what you need to help me make the purchasing decision. I want to buy, I don't want to be sold to, right? And that, when you think in terms of ROI, when you think in terms of how we're trying to tweak the definition of ROI for you guys, and it's hopefully already changed a bunch throughout this episode, and maybe it changes more towards the end of the episode. But when you think about the ROI, the only way you can figure out what impact you potentially, your product or your service potentially could have on this person is to ask them a bunch of questions,
You
right?
bet.
So we've given a ton of examples on the show throughout the past 13 episodes. Let's shift gears because we always talk gym, and I always make fun of furniture stores, unfortunately. And Joe and I have a buddy who works with the SOS Dojo and Lead Cycles, who's a like 25-year furniture
He's
sales
25 years in
veteran.
the furniture industry, and
So
yeah,
no
and
offense
he
to
still
Chris.
pulls out some of the old stuff, and it's like, Chris, you got to change, man. And he even admits it. He goes, yeah, it's so ingrained into my psyche,
It's
and
just
yeah,
all that
like
it
the
is.
tactics that. And again, I've said this before. You're better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. So it's great to
Yep.
know all of these tactics so that you can pull back.
Yeah.
That's
So
what's really
let's
good.
let's shift to a at least I've never been in this industry, but maybe you have, car sales. Have you
I've
ever
worked
sold a
with.
car?
I've actually done sales training for the auto industry, even though that I have not
Awesome.
personally sold cars. I've done sales training in the auto industry because keeping in mind that I've been in the bicycle industry, I've been in the electric vehicle industry, the mobility
Hmm.
industry. So a lot of the same things
Yeah.
in those industries definitely translate to the auto industry. And interestingly enough, Jeff, there are some people that are in the auto industry that have now gotten into the electric bike industry.
Mm.
So there's this crossover. Just as an example, which companies currently have electric bikes? Just that here we are today. As of today, as the recording of this podcast, Porsche just last week, Porsche just bought an electric bike company. They're coming out with an
Wow.
e-bike. Audi's been building e-bikes for over 5 years. BMW for over 5 years in the European market. So there's a lot of bicycle companies that are into e-bikes, let alone bikes. The Volvo and Trek had the Trek had a bike built just for Volvo customers. So it's interesting. So going into the auto industry wasn't a stretch, because a lot of the techniques, because sales in and of themselves, we talk to people here on this podcast, program, service, product, it's still a sale. And the approach of ROI is so important. So if you're going to buy a car, what's the return on investment in a car? I mean, we all know it's probably the biggest depreciating asset that you'll ever purchase.
Yeah, so it ain't cash. Your Kelly Blue Book value is going to be trash in a couple of years, you guys. It depreciates the moment you drive off the lot.
You drive it off the lot.
You drove off the lot, you lost a third of the value immediately. Boom. You drove 500 yards, third of the value gone, right? So it's not cash. And this is my point. Baby. It's that, again, there's an ROI in every single industry. And that's why I want to pick on some new industries. I'm going to vary it up in the next coming episode. You guys don't worry. It's not always going to be gyms, furniture sales, and electric bikes. We're going to give new examples. So if you're in the car industry today. Yep. Yeah, I think cars is, first of all, car salesmen and women always get a bad rap, right?
Oh, that is the biggest stigma in sales ever.
Picturesque, like, used car salesman, like, I think of Danny DeVito.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah. I think of two of my favorite are Bernie Mac in Transformers.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. And Danny DeVito in, what was it? It was the Telekinetic Girl. It was like a 90s movie. Oh, my gosh.
Bill Paxton in True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger in that Corvette. It's hysterical because it's you. Yeah. It's so ugly. It's just he's wearing the polyester pants and the plaid shirt. It's just terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Or Steve Martin in any Steve Martin film. All right, so like going basically, he's amazing. He's good at it. The used car salesman. All right, so let's dive into this. So if you're selling a car, you ask the question, what is the ROI? Well, the ROI is not cash, obviously. It's depreciating in value immediately upon driving it off the lot. People argue vehemently against buying new cars or leasing because there's a huge waste of money, whatever, blah, 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 right? So what is the ROI on a car? Well, it could be a number of things, right? So I'll give you an example from my experience. I think I've shared it on the show. We were buying a used van. Now, I've since sold the van. We're no longer a van family, right? And we're happy not to be. But we got a van because I got two little girls, right? And we wanted, sliding doors, make it easy. The electric doors and all that stuff makes it a lot easier to get kids in and out of car seats. So we're looking for this van. We go to a car dealership. The guy is basically not helping us out at all. We came in there and we were like, we want a Dodge Grand Caravan. Like we had to tell them everything. I was like, I want this. I'm spending this much. Show us it. Like, and sometimes that unfortunately is the experience that people have at these car dealerships. And that's why companies like CarMax exist, where they're just like, oh, people hate the sales process, when really they just hate being sold to. If instead car dealerships would tweak that process where it was more about like, tell me about you. Like, what were you hoping to do with this vehicle? How do you want to feel in this vehicle? Is it for long distance transportation or short distance? Do you live locally? Like, are you just looking to show it off? Are you going to transport a bunch of different people in it? Like, do you want to carry cargo? Who's driving it? Your teenage daughter or son or whatever? Like, ask those questions. And I've experienced that in I've gone through, 7, 8 vehicles. I've never had that experience.
No.
Not once. It's always been, I do the research. I look up all the Kelly Blue Book values. I get like the price range. I figure out who has the car I want. Then I go to that specific dealership and then I say I want this car, and then they basically sell it to me. I ask for a discount and that's it.
Yep.
That's a terrible process. And it doesn't have to be that way. Because the ROI on a vehicle does what? It gives you, there's one word that comes up right away, freedom. A vehicle gives you freedom. And there are unfortunately many people who cannot afford a vehicle and do not have that freedom, and they have to walk or ride the bus, and that's not freedom,
No.
because that's time lost. That's, other expendable income lost, to travel in that way. And it's unfortunate. And those of us that do have the opportunity to have a vehicle, we have freedom. You
There's
don't,
another thing
we
that
take it for granted too. You
the,
can go
the
anywhere you want, anytime.
the vehicle also provides you, in again, depending on the brand, the
Hmm.
vehicle will also provide you a sense of style. The
Yeah.
vehicle will also provide you status, like it or
Safety.
not, right? Right? And,
Yeah.
and then there's experience, because
Yeah.
there's different type of driving experiences. Did you
Hmm.
want to get into like a smart car? You can drive a smart car, and like, not necessarily the most practical vehicle around. It
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily give you, for some people it's a status thing, because they're saying, hey, I'm smart and I'm being fuel efficient and whatnot. It's certainly not a level of performance, right? These are all
Hmm.
things that we pay for. And this is it. We're talking automobiles. You
Yeah.
could do the same thing with other products, right? Some people will never walk into your kitchen, right? Think of it. You'll walk into a kitchen, and yet I love different kitchen appliances,
Yeah.
right? Like, what's the toaster? Like, I've got this DeLonghi toaster. It's freaking beautiful, man. And like, I'll give you a great example. Let's go even further. Like, as crazy as this is, I was in a kitchen store. I love kitchen stores, by the way, like with all these different appliances, and like,
Yep.
so I went in and I was looking for a salt and pepper grinder. I wanted a salt grinder and a pepper grinder. And like, salt grinder, right? Most people, yeah,
Hmm.
I'm gonna no, no, no. I'm looking for a salt grinder. So this woman starts talking to me, and she was fantastic. And yeah, so we're and the way that she approached it, and I'll mention brand names. I said I love the look of this one salt grinder,
Hmm.
and it was a Trudeau, and it was beautiful and everything else, ceramic, and it the feel of it, the weight of it. And then I looked at a different brand called Peugeot, and this is what she said. I looked over at it. It was more money. It just didn't feel as substantial in my mind. I wanted to, like, this thing was beefy that I had, the Trudeau. The way that she sold the idea of the Peugeot to me was, oh, that's a Peugeot. Now, the way that she said it like,
The
who's
status symbol.
in the
Yeah.
status of this salt grinder, you
Yeah.
guys. So what's the return on investment for me as a person who is this, like, I love different kitchen appliances, right? I like it's a salt grinder, right? You can go to a dollar store and buy a pink Himalayan salt grinder.
Yeah.
It'll say Dollarama on it, right? Or do you spend, you know, like, whether it's $50 or $100, and you have this is mine. I put
Yeah.
chunks of salt in, and it grinds it myself. I'll tell you what, I prefer the look of it. I'm willing to spend extra money on it, because it at the end of the day, if I close my eyes and I tasted the food, hey man,
Be the same.
dollar store or the Trudeau or Peugeot, guess what? But what's the return on investment for me as the buyer? And again, I didn't get sold. I bought.
Hmm.
That's the
Yeah.
difference. The return on investment for me is how I felt, as crazy as this sounds, how I felt about a salt grinder.
Well,
Right?
yeah. I'll give you a holiday example here, guys. Ready? Chocolate. You can get cheap dollar store chocolate, or you can get Ghirardelli chocolate or Lindt. You can get those.
Right.
What are those, like Rochers or whatever? Those, like
Ferrero
hazelnut.
Rochers. Yeah, I could
Yeah.
eat a whole, like, box of
Yeah.
them in a sitting.
Yeah.
There's just never
Exactly.
enough.
But they are what? They're gold wraps. Like, they're
Yeah,
all fancy looking. That's a status thing, man. That's a status thing.
absolutely. And
Do you
people will pay
absolutely?
for that.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do you need that? No. Could you get away with cheaper chocolate? Yes, but why are you buying it?
Well, and then the questions then become, if we're using chocolate as the example, is, so you can start asking people. And again, most of these, the
Mhm.
chocolate example is an impulse buy. You're usually walking in a grocery store and you're taking, and there's a whole other, we could talk about merchandising on
Oh
another
yeah.
episode, which is so critical.
Hmm.
However, when it comes down to it, if you were in a chocolate store and you, because I mean, I'm sure you have them in your town, there are people that are professional chocolatiers and you pay a premium for them. Like this is, you go to a Calbo chocolate store. I mean, and these are people that are trained from Calbo in France. I'll tell you what, like they're everywhere, by the way. If you've never gone, go experience it. It's fantastic. First of
Hmm.
all, the chocolate is premium. Secondly, the chefs that are in there, they know what the hell they're doing. And the quality is unreal. And this is just it. It's this, there's a level of status, and they'll tell you what to like taste this. I want you to experience this. And they'll give
Hmm.
you a sample and they'll tell you, you won't get that waxy, cheap chocolate taste. You'll taste this. You'll get hints of, and the salesperson is asking you, can you taste this? And suddenly it's like drinking wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could buy a
Mm.
$2 chuck
Wine's
over
a good
at
example too.
Trader
Yeah.
Joe's, or you can get yourself, and like anything else, right? When it comes to flavor, you get to a place where after a certain dollar value, unless you're trained, right? And this is
You
what's
can't
very
tell.
interesting, Jeff. With wine is a great example. You can spend, if you were to blind taste test people, like to a certain level, you can taste the difference between a $2 bottle and a $25 bottle, and then at $50 bottle, and then beyond 50, it's kind of like, I don't know. If you told me this was, at least for me,
Yeah.
after 50 to $100, I'm not an expert. I
Yep.
mean, don't get me wrong, I love to drink wine. However, after that, it's really tough for me to tell the difference. Here's what's interesting. It doesn't mean though the return on investment, right? I don't
Mhm.
have to tell someone that this is a $200 bottle of wine. I know that if it's a $200 bottle of wine, I'm influenced by it. If you didn't do the blind taste test and you said this one's good with hot dogs, this one's great with chicken, and this one's phenomenal with a Chateaubriand, you tell me which one you think is going to be the best wine. The hot dog wine, the chicken wine, or the Chateaubriand wine. Like, I mean, it's all in terms of the
Yeah.
presentation, the status. So, what's the return on investment? Is it just the dollar value, or is it more of the how does that make you feel?
Hmm.
How does that car? Let's go back to the car example. When you
Hmm.
get into something where the seat automatically envelops you, and the
Hmm.
steering wheel automatically, the biomechanics, the geometry of how you feel in the cockpit, right? Or are you
Yeah.
just getting into a box? I mean, you're going to get around. There's freedom.
Mhm.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Jeff. If the words that we use, and if you look up on my shelf, there's a book that's called Words That Sell. Words that we use are they're what help us persuade. They are what help us influence. And like it or not, everyone, you're under the influence right now. You're
Welcome to
under
the
the
party.
influence. So the question is, are you able to persuade and influence without being pushy? Can you help people get that level of feeling, that status, that emotional response, so that for them, the value is so high, that's their return on investment? Because that's really what it is. So go back to, what do you sell? Are you selling chocolate? Or are you selling flavor?
An experience, a flavor
Experience.
experience.
Yeah. Right?
And that's what it is. And the reason we're giving you guys a wide breadth of examples right now is because we know you're not necessarily in the fitness industry, in the sales industry. Well, you're selling probably, but you're not creating sales programs like we are necessarily. And regardless of what you're selling, again, I want to stress the point: there is an ROI. There is an
Oh yeah.
ROI. So we'll go back to like the service industry here for a second, real quick. So I want to go on to your kitchen example. Let's say that you're a contractor or you're doing kitchen remodeling, right? So in that scenario, what is the ROI for the client if they're able to completely reconfigure their kitchen, make it what they want, from cabinets to countertops to fixtures to appliances to
Yeah.
backsplashes to whatever? Like, what does that do for them? I think, your status plays through a little bit there too, for sure. But I think about like how you feel in a kitchen. I'll give you my example. So, my previous home, we used to call our kitchen the one butt kitchen. There's only room in that kitchen for one butt. And as
Yep.
soon as there was more than two people or two butts in that kitchen, it was crowded. It was a problem. It was frustrating. So, how did I feel about my kitchen then? Hated it. Hated that
Mm.
kitchen. Like, terrible kitchen. Moved to the new house now. We have a six butt kitchen. It's actually got like, we got a little cart there for like our coffee and drinks and wine and stuff is all up on there. You can go in there, you can make yourself a little bevy, you can get your coffee in the morning. You're not in the way of anybody. We got plenty of room around the stove, the dishwasher, the sink. What's the difference here now? I have that space. It feels like home. If I were to say, how does that make me feel? It makes me feel at home. It makes
It's
me
bigger
feel
than that,
like,
Jeff. I'm hearing pride. You're
yeah, I
proud
feel
of where
good.
you
I
are.
was I was just getting to that, man. We
Pride
just
and
hosted
ownership.
thanks we hosted Thanksgiving at our house. This is the first time I've hosted a holiday in a house that I've owned in my life.
How do you feel?
Amazing.
Think of being
Amazing.
a
Like,
real estate agent. Same thing. Never mind the person who's the home
yeah.
contractor. Same thing. This is going to be your, it's not just a house. This is a
Hmm.
home that you can feel proud of, that you can invite people in. And what are you going to be doing in these kitchens and in these homes? You're creating memories,
Yeah.
memorable experiences, things that you're going to, like, the inevitable reality of our lives is that we're going to die. And the fact is that when I go, I
Wait,
can't
what?
take anything with me. I can't take anything with me. Hopefully, I get to take these memories
Yeah.
and these experiences and that feeling of love, that feeling of
Yeah.
joy, that feeling of happiness, that feeling of there's nothing wrong with pride. It's not a
Hmm.
guilty pride. This is healthy in terms of, I'm proud of my kids. I'm proud of my own parents. I'm proud of the food that I
Hmm.
put on the table. And so, yeah, pride and ownership, people feel that way. And the other thing too, whether it's a kitchen or whether it's exercise equipment or again, I'm coming back to the electric bike. It's fun.
Hmm.
What am I selling? Fun. How much joy and fun am I offering someone? It's a
Hmm.
return on investment, right? Selling health, guess what? It's longevity. It's better performance in running around the kids, better performance in sports, better performance in the bedroom. Are you kidding me? If I have better health and fitness, my wife is going to be like, I don't know what you're on, but man, keep doing it. You bet, girl. That's health. You want to say that the return on investment isn't important? Yeah, hell yes, it's important. And again, I mean, we cower sometimes about these conversations, and yet when we set ourselves up as the authority in our space, and I can't remember the movie. It was a movie with Dudley Moore, and it was funny because they were talking about advertising, and the advertising for a certain car and it was basically the car that you bought to get laid, and it was hysterical, right? And
Yeah.
then because it was funny because some people get into this midlife crisis and they have to buy a
Hmm.
car to make themselves feel younger.
Hmm.
Well, that for them is their return on investment. I'm not suggesting that that's the right play. I just find it funny to
Yeah.
go back to the emotional response, right? The left
Yeah.
center, right? The left brain is going to go price, price, price. The right brain is going on emotion. If you're focused on purely the money and you're driving that car off the lot, you're not going to sell a car to
You're
somebody.
losing.
Yeah. I'm not selling you on the idea that, hey, you know what, you're going to be losing 33% as you drive away. The right brain is going on, how does it feel? How does it handle?
Yeah.
Is this going to be functional for you? Going over those questions that we start right back from the beginning that Jeff and I talk about: discovery,
Hmm.
clarity. What is it about? It's not about us. The center of the universe is the person that I'm asking questions to. Once I get there, I can create the return on investment for them based on how they feel. You're going to walk away from anything from this episode is get that emotional connection when we find out what their challenge and or their solution that they're looking for, whether it's problem agitate solve or simply discovery. Man, oh man, we do a good job of that. That person's going to simply say, Jeff, what do I need? What else should I get with this?
Yeah. And that feeling, I would say, if you do a good enough job during that discovery phase, they feel that feeling now.
Of course.
Like they should be feeling it at this moment, saying
Yeah.
like, yeah, like imagining, envisioning themselves in that vehicle, for example, just saying like, yeah, that feels good. Feels good to own
Mm-hmm.
this. It feels good to have that salt shaker, to have that bigger kitchen. It feels good to have lost this weight, even prior to them losing this weight. So I wanna layer on this real quick for you guys. ROI can also compound. It can
Mm.
compound. It's more
Yep.
than just even what we just talked about. That's just the surface, man. Because then once they lose that weight, it's more than they dreamed. Once
Yeah.
they get that new kitchen, it's more than they dreamed. All of a sudden, they realize, like, oh, I can also do this now, right? It compounds. They can do more with that.
New
So,
kitchen. I just found. I know where everything else is now. I've got
yeah,
space for all of my stuff in the, and
it's
I
all
know where it is.
organized.
Yeah.
I'm more efficient now.
Yeah.
I can cook with less stress now.
And I
I
can have more
enjoy cooking
people in the
now.
kitchen with me while I'm
Yeah.
experiencing this.
It
Love it.
compounds. There's
Love it.
more to it than even what you can figure out in that initial discovery phase. And you'll find that out later on throughout the time that they're a client. If you sell cars, repeat business is a big deal. So if you make that experience enjoyable and you do a good job with this and they see that intangible ROI in their eyes and then they have that vehicle and then they have that experience and then it compounds, they come back again to you. You're like, I want another vehicle. I want another experience that you
Mm-hmm.
gave me. Every example that we use has an opportunity to have compounding ROI, and
And a
ultimately,
salesperson.
yeah,
Sorry, Jeff. I'm because what you're
yep,
saying about compounding is so important. As a salesperson, if you're in auto sales, in gym sales, in bike sales, in product sales, I mean,
hmm
the recurring revenue is going to be important. The recurring revenue, for the example of the auto salesperson, is eventually there's going to need you're going to need another car. Could be years down the road. Then it's who do you know who?
hmm
You're going to come in for maintenance, right? Regular scheduled maintenance, which there's a cost. So there's profit dollars in scheduled maintenance. And as they come in, there might be new features, there might be new accessories, there might be new experiences that you can offer within your dealership. Or you could just catch up with someone and say, hey, real quick, Jeff, how's the car going? How's the new truck?
yeah.
Can you give me an example of what you've done? Is there anything that you are surprised with that you've been able to do or that you've experienced since owning this? And suddenly you've got what as a salesperson? I've got new content. It's
Yeah.
not just it's not just hey, this is Jeff and he bought a Toyota Tacoma. No, hey, this is Jeff. He bought a Toyota Tacoma from us 3 years ago. Jeff, tell us a little bit, and then Jeff tells a story that people can now imagine themselves.
Yep.
Right? This comes back to what's your this is becomes a you want to compound. I'm lead generating with social proof that I put out there, and it's not about here's the truck, here's the horsepower, this is the fuel economy, and there's the price. It ain't about that.
I think a great point you're making there too is that if you guys are reaching out to current clients, the conversation should not be like, "Hey Jeff, how's that truck? It's good, awesome, man. Let me know if you need anything else." It like,
Oh god.
where are you going with that? That's not doing
Yeah.
anything. So to Joe's point there, he just brought up like instead of that, hey Jeff, I'm stoked for you with that truck. How's that been going for you? Oh, it's been going good. Cool. What have you been able to do with it? What do you,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me asking, what do you do with your truck? And I would say, oh, it's allowed me to go fishing with a gigantic kayak without needing to get all this extra stuff to be able to cart it around,
Yeah.
right? And that has given me the freedom that I want. I can drop in on any lake around me, and I got a million lakes. So it's provided me this experience, and it's allowed me to, grow a fishing channel and do all this other stuff on YouTube,
You
right?
call
So
back your old client and you go, "Hey
yeah,
Jeff, listen, man. I know that we did some personal training with together, and I'm just following up. How do you feel now since you've let go of 50 pounds? What has that done for your life? How are your
mhm,
knees feeling? And if I did a great job of discovery, you could say, I know that you've got 2 daughters, so tell me a little bit about what that feels like now when you're running around with them. I mean, suddenly it's not
yeah.
about my jeans fit better. It's the feeling, that compound ROI that Jeff talked about. My God, it's priceless.
Yeah, that's huge. And ultimately, the final point we want to make on this episode, you guys, is what you should be thinking, maybe asking if appropriate, but what is this worth to them?
Mm.
So, given the example, Joe, you just went through with like weight loss, how does it feel having let it go of that 50 pounds or whatever, right? Whatever that goal was that they've achieved. Um, when you're selling through the initial intake process and you're saying we're going to help you lose this 50 pounds, right? When we're initially investigating this whole situation, we're doing our discovery. What is losing 50 pounds worth to them?
Jeez Louise.
And that's going to be hopefully invaluable, right? It's a priceless thing because again, I'm not selling 50-pound weight loss. I'm selling the feeling afterwards. You've lost 50 pounds. And sometimes, you could use this old school sales persuasion stuff is like, hey, if I wave the magic wand, you lost 50 pounds. Like, how would you feel? Right? What would that do for you? How would that improve your life? Give me like your daily rundown. Like what would that do for you? What would you do differently? What would you be able to or be capable of doing now, having lost that weight? And then we get into sort of the juicy details of like, well, my knees wouldn't hurt when I walk up the stairs, or when I pick up my kids, my shoulder wouldn't ache, and I'd feel less out of breath just walking around the mall, or whatever,
Jeez.
right?
Health prevention, better
Live
agility, better
longer, get off
performance,
drugs.
living
Yeah.
longer, like
Yeah.
all of it. Think of it, it's compounding benefits. And what's interesting is whether it's health or
Hmm.
whether it's wealth in terms of ROI, whether it's freedom, like whether it's your relationships,
Hmm.
all of these things you can really granulate all of this stuff down to, like I mentioned this before on a previous podcast. It comes down to three things, right? It's money, it's health, or it's sex, aka relationships, aka,
Hmm.
right? So you dig down, because what is it about? What's the love aspect of it, right? I feel better about myself. I've got more confidence in myself, right? I mean, what is that worth? That
Yeah.
whole MasterCard campaign of it's priceless.
Hmm.
I mean, it was a brilliant ad campaign. And what is it that you sell, guys? What do you sell? And can you ask the questions in such a way where what you're offering, what you're selling to people, can it be priceless? Because when you do that, that's when people buy from you. And the value is high, people buy. Can you set yourself up so that when you ask the right questions, it is priceless?
That's a challenge. So we want you guys to go after that. We want you to think about going through your intake process, asking those questions that lead your guests, not your prospects, your guests,
Mm.
to the right conclusions where they can understand ultimately what they want. I mean, I'll tell you from my experience in the fitness industry, like 99.9% of the time, people don't know what they want. They have a rough idea of what they think they want, but they don't know what they really want. And if you do a good job during discovery, you can uncover that truth, the real gold
Mm.
nuggets there. What do they actually want? And then you move forward to what could be this ROI for this person. How are they going to feel? How's it going to change their life, etc. And once we figure that out, then we can figure out what it's worth to them. Now, you could ask that question. I'm not recommending that you necessarily have to ask that question. You want to answer that question in your head. I'll tell you, if you go through this process and they start breaking down in tears, thinking about what they could potentially do or change or become, you've accomplished pricelessness. Like, I'll just tell you that, right? So if you get that reaction, it's priceless.
Mm.
Again, you could always ask them, but if they say, what's this worth? I don't know, $250 a month. Well, you're in trouble. Like,
Good luck.
you have not done a good job
Nope.
yet. So
Nope.
I'd keep asking
That's
questions.
it.
All right, you
3,000 a
guys.
year? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Forget
know.
it. You're
Roughly
losing.
2,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So action step to you guys. I want you to think about the questions you're asking, and I want you to ask yourselves this question now at the end of the episode. And maybe it's changed throughout the episode. Hopefully it did. And ultimately what it comes down to is, what is the ROI for your clients? What are you selling? What are you selling? And if you say just specifically what the product or service is that you're selling, you're wrong. So think deeper. Ask the question 100 times if it takes that much. Write it down. rewrite it. And then once you figure out what that is, what that ROI is going to be for your clients, what the common denominator is, what it is that you sell, then document that. Put it on a Post-it, put it on mirrors around the house, put it on your fridge, whatever you can, just something where it's always present of mind. So you're constantly thinking about it. And that becomes your goal for every single discovery phase, right? Every single intake process, every single sales appointment. That's what you have to find a way to come to a conclusion of with that potential client. The end. Mic
The
drop.
end. Love it, man. Yeah,
All right,
there's
you
nothing
guys.
else to add. You just put an exclamation point on it right there, Jeff.
Yeah.
Good.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much again for listening. Be sure to subscribe to the show. Drop us a 5-star review if you can. We appreciate it. And we will see you again every Monday, 6 a.m. We will be dropping episodes. So we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Take care, guys.